Welcome to Toffee TV. IDRISSA GANA GUEYE has signed a new deal with Everton Football Club. He signed a 1+1, as it's known. And I'm delighted I said it on the news last night when we reported it. I think it was massively important, this one, because basically it's the sort of the mainstay in our team, and certainly in our midfield. And this was an important one to get over the line, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose just because of the time it's taken, it leaves that little bit of doubt in everyone's mind, doesn't it? And makes people start getting worried that we're going to lose one of our most important players. So, massively important that it was done. Puts to bed any of those worries. There was a couple of teams we were told were sniffing around them, but I think they were just well placed stories about him going back to France. But why would you want to leave, you know, the Premier League, Everton at this moment? He's always shown that he loves the football club, and in a time when, you know, there is going to be a lot of ins, there's already been a lot of outs, you need a certain level of stability, and that stability coming in the form of experience, but experience that's doing so well. Of course, we've kept older Seamus Coleman, who is a little bit further down the road, and we understand why David Moyes wants to keep him, but IDRISSA GANA GUEYE is still a massively important player on the football pitch.
I found it really interesting, David Moyes' quote, obviously, about him staying, how important it was to keep him, but he did reference that change you've just been talking about there, and said, I think he made a comment that a lot of people are very excited with, and that is due to the amount of new players that are going to be coming in this summer. It's really important for IDRISSA around the dressing room, but also to sort of show them Everton way, if you like, but that kind of thing coupled together with Coleman. But the fact that Moyes referenced the amount of new players coming in, I think has got people excited as well. But he is, someone like him is really important, isn't it?
Of course he is, and you know, Everton potentially bringing in, you know, young French talents, let's just say.
Yeah.
It's good to have that person in the dressing room who's been at the club for a while, understands the club, but also understands the other stuff as well. You know, what it's like to live, you know, where most Everton players live, and what the culture is here, and how it might be different from where he's come from, and all those kind of things. That helps, and you find that a lot of the international players sort of gravitate towards IDRISSA GANA GUEYE, as maybe a lot more of the homegrown players gravitate towards Seamus Coleman. So he's got a massive leadership role, even though you don't always see that in terms of, like, you know, being the captain or anything like that. He sort of, that's not his remit, and never has been, but he's such an important player, and you know, we've seen that this season. So on and off the pitch, he's hugely important.
He's made 211 appearances for Everton across his 2 spells, scored 8 goals, and he's just such a good, I mean, the age of him, the performances he was putting in last season, he got Player of the Year, he got Player of the Year as well. And, you know, 35, he doesn't look like a 35-year-old, does he? He gets around a bit. I think it's them tights, whatever's in them tights. But he's absolutely key to David Moyes' team. And are we looking for someone to play with him this season? Or, because we know that David Moyes wants to bring in a midfield player, at least one. Do you think they're more likely to bring in someone to complement Garner? Or do you think he's likely to bring in someone who could eventually be his successor? Or can it sort of be a hybrid of the two?
I suppose a hybrid would probably be best, because it'd be really difficult to maybe get the player to replace him. But maybe someone who can look to take that role. Maybe there's someone already at the football club who can take that role, and as football is changing and developing all the time, who knows if that role will stay the same as it is. But I just think that whoever's in the club, whether they come in or whether at the club already, they can just see his standards and see how hard he trains every day, and what it takes to be at that level is the first indicator, isn't it, of what it's going to take to be at the top level for so long. You know, he's been, obviously played at Villa in the Premier League before he come to Everton, 2 spells at Everton, PSG in between. Those standards, that longevity, what allows that, and that's every day the training he puts in, the standard he obviously set to himself. Always got a big smile on his face, you know, and it's just a massively important player. So whoever comes into the club has got to look at that and think, that's the first thing I've got to achieve. And I don't think there's anyone at the club right now who can take that place off him, because I just think he's such an important player. But that's fine. That's fine. Bring somebody in and watch them, and let them watch him and learn from him, or someone who's already at the club, because he's just so vitally important.
I suppose he's key as well, even though they're not quite the same kind of players. For someone like Harrison Armstrong, and also Tim Irabunum. Tim Irabunum, 21, got the physical attributes, powerful player, can run with the ball. He's got to grow this summer, hasn't he? He's got to grow into what, really show David Moyes what he's all about. And then we've got Harrison Armstrong, who's obviously 3 years younger, had a really good loan spell at Derby. He's up in Scotland with Everton, he'll be involved. David Moyes already said he'll be involved in all the pre-season stuff and going to America with the first team. IDRISSA GANA GUEYE is someone who both of those players should be looking up to anyway, and seeing what kind of, how does he conduct himself every day, what does he do on the pitch, and maybe trying to emulate a little bit of what he does on the pitch as well.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they look up to him and look at what they're doing all the time. This fella's going to end up with, you'd imagine, over 250 odd appearances for Everton Football Club, and that's difficult. That's a difficult thing to achieve. And he's played with the likes of Messi, and Mbappe, and plays like that at PSG. He's obviously a really, really talented footballer, and
obviously if you can get Messi and Mbappe to sit down and watch Everton, then what a guy.
Yeah, that takes some power, especially those Everton teams.
That's it.
No, and that's it, isn't it? At the end of the day, he's a highly respected figure at Everton Football Club, and it's just brilliant that the deal's done. It's over the line now, and he'll be back for pre-season once he comes back from holiday. Just
we'll finish up in a sec, but in terms of obviously going into this summer, there was so much uncertainty. There was a lot of players sort of out of contract. There was people worried about who was going to be retained. We've already seen Dominic Calvert-Lewin leave the club. However people feel about him, he's gone out the door. And people were worried, I think, about IDRISSA GANA GUEYE and about Jared Branthwaite as well, who's obviously another one. Carlos Alcaraz was another one that people were saying, we've absolutely got to make sure we keep Alcaraz. We've got to try and keep Branthwaite. We've got to try and keep IDRISSA GANA GUEYE. So to be sat here sort of early July, and David Moyes and the recruitment team, whoever, Angus Kinnear, whoever else has dealt with it, that, okay, we've got Jared Branthwaite signed on a new contract. We've got IDRISSA GANA GUEYE now signed on a new contract. Carlos Alcaraz is an Everton player. Seamus Coleman's remained. Tierno Barry looks like, well, the latest report is he's on coming for a medical. Yeah. How well do you think Everton are doing so far? It's not going to be enough for some people, and probably isn't really enough for me at the minute. I want to see some more faces, but they were quite big jobs to tick off, I think. Maybe not James, but the others. Get Branthwaite to commit to a new 5-year deal, get Alcaraz sorted, get Garner sorted. They were big things on a to-do list, and Everton have seemingly done that so far.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how big the job is in terms of how many hands are on deck actually making these things go. It's a difficult time for us because all these people are new to the club and they're coming in, and there's a lot of, I imagine there's a lot of different things happening at the same time, and if you're not a fluid team because you haven't been together for long, maybe, and some parts of that team are supposedly not working at Everton yet. So I think they've started, haven't they, with trying to tie down what's the easiest thing to tie down, and that's the players who are at this football
Michael
club.
Keane as well, of course.
Concentrate on those players, get those players that you want to sign. It pretty much looks like Everton have done that. David Moyes said we're going to get the players that we want to stay in. It looks like they've done that. And the next thing now is getting the players that they want to bring in from the outside. Thierry Barry looks like a player that was the first one they wanted to get over the line, and then you'd look at midfield and you'd look at the right wing and suggest that they'd be the next two, and then it would be complementing them with free transfers, loan players, and a few like sort of squad type players who will have their part in the season. So listen, we won't know till first game of the season, and when the deadline shuts at the end of August, early September, we won't know the true scale of things till then. What we need, will we? So all we can just hope is that everything just progresses quickly, because that's what we want. We want players to come in quickly.
yeah, listen, it's so far so good, I think, with what we've done, but we not saying that, you know, we're buzzing with the lack of activity, because there has been some activity. We want more players in. But let us know what you think about IDRISSA GANA GUEYE signing a new deal. We think he was obviously really important. David Moyes thinks he's really important, and then it's onwards and upwards. Let us know in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up as well if you want to become a Toffee TV Premium member. Links in the description, QR codes on the screen now. See you later.